Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the September 14th, 2020 episode of the Cyber Insecurity stream. My name is Neil Bridges, and as always, thank you for joining me today. We'd like to welcome all of our new joiners, as well as our regular visitors. Thank you all for... There we go. Let's try that. I got told my audio was a little bit low. That's what I get for messing with settings, to right before the stream. Is that better for my producer? Is that better? There we go. Awesome. Thank you all. Thank you. Welcome to all the new joiners. Welcome to all the regular videos. Carmen Mod and myself are back from vacation. We missed every single one of you guys. Super. I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am to be back on stream. This was something I've been looking forward to all vacation. I suppose I should have spent more time actually enjoying my vacation. But I actually missed streaming with you guys, and so super excited to be back today. With that being said, every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, we stream from 7 to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. We are here to elevate this conversation around cybersecurity. And what does that exactly mean, right? We have a problem in our industry where we don't have real conversations about the topics that affect our ability to secure people, data, and companies. And cybersecurity is an ever-changing landscape. And so our goal here is really to focus on multiple aspects of that industry. You'll hear terms like red teamer, blue teamer, and sometimes you'll think that you're out of your league. You're really not. We also discuss cyber risk, the industry impacts of our current landscape, and the art of the possible when dealing with today's cybersecurity issues. Now, whether you're an experienced veteran, whether you're new to the field, whether you barely know how to spell cyber, or somebody that was born in cyber, this stream is for you. We are here for everyone to participate and everybody to learn in our community. With that in mind, we regularly try to have professionals from across our industry. Tonight, I'm joined by my very good friend, Roger Hale. We'll give his introduction on the next slide. Very excited to have such an esteemed cybersecurity executive here with us. And so we have moderators in chat, as always. I'll be answering your questions on stream, but really having our special guest here. He's going to be here to answer your questions as well. And really, your questions are so incredibly important to us. I can't stress enough how important this opportunity is for everybody here on stream to have access to somebody who's as well respected and as seasoned as our special guest is here today. That is really the prime value that comes from our stream being live and being able to interact with somebody like this. And so we ask that you, at any point in time during the stream, about any topic, whether it's about something that we're covering on the stream or something that's top of mind to you, please use the chat liberally. Ask any questions that you've got. And we'll do our best, either myself, one of the moderators, or our special guests will do our best to answer them. We do broadcast via Twitch for our regularly scheduled broadcast. So if you're watching this right now, you're watching us over Twitch. You can find videos either in the video section on Twitch of some of our past broadcasts. You can also go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We will post snippets of these conversations as well as the full one up on YouTube afterwards. We are here for you, the community, and we strive to bring you the most intriguing opinions, points of view, and conversations in the cybersecurity industry every stream. We appreciate all the followers, all the subscribers. Subscribers do get early access to a lot of our special features, and we do bring on new features regularly, as well as promotional offers and things like that. We have had a couple people donate to the stream already. We're taking a new stance on donations to the stream. From this point forward, any and all donations that are donated to the stream will be immediately sent to the Wounded Warrior Foundation. We thank all of our vets for their service and their sacrifice. And if you'd like to support the stream in that way, head on over to our About section of our Twitch page and you can gain access to that. There's no obligation to do any of these, obviously. We're going to continue to deliver the content. We've got some amazing stuff, not just tonight, but in the next couple weeks that we're excited to present. And so with those logistics out of the way, let's really kind of talk about, tonight's stream and kind of our schedule for tonight. And so with that, I'm super, super excited to introduce my guest for tonight, Roger Hale. Roger is the Chief Security Officer at Big ID, but he's much, much more than that. His history is just long and amazing. He has well over 20 years of experience in IT and cyber. He's done stints as Chief Information Security Officer for Brocade, if anybody actually remembers Brocade from a long time ago. He was a senior leader at Symantec, Lending Club, in addition to sitting as the board of directors on numerous companies. And he also speaks at numerous conferences, leadership events. He was telling me his speaking schedule over the next couple of days, and it's pretty insane. And so we're very privileged to have him join us tonight. And so, Roger, on behalf of everybody, thank you very much for joining us. I'm pretty sure I didn't go into great detail of your background, but is there anything else you want to add or say about that?
Neil, just really appreciate it. Happy to be here. The only thing I'd probably add to that is that at this point, I get to spend every weekend with my grandkids and have them come over and have them close. And so, the other side of this is the fact that definitely, find that keeping close with my granddaughters and with my family is something that helps keep me grounded in these times as well.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. I think that's an important thing for everybody to keep in mind. I said this before I went on vacation, and I think I say it again, is that during this time particularly, we all need to find something to keep us grounded. I think we've got just too much going on. Take your vacation, hold your family close, just, recognize, that you need that time to yourself. So it's very good words of advice.
That and my red swingline stapler. Those are the things that keep me grounded.
We actually already have somebody talking about the stapler inside of chat, so it's happening already. Stapler wars, there it is. It's gonna be a good one. This is we got a lively group today. Cool.
Excellent.
As always, if you've got any interest in being a guest on our show, please shoot me a message either over on LinkedIn or at Twitter at IT Junkie. Make sure you go over and follow us on all of our socials. That way you're up to date. Make sure you're hitting those notification bars, for all of our socials, so that you get notification on all that. Let's talk about Wednesday real quick. We have a massive giveaway that's happening on Wednesday's stream. I'm super stoked and super excited. Everybody who's watching right now, really turn on your listening ears. Right, I'm gonna treat you like my kids and turn on your listening ears right now, because I want you to listen to what we've got going on Wednesday. September 16th this week, we're gonna have Bill Nelson, who's the co-founder of Identity Fusion, on the stream. Bill has a identity and access management practitioner program that he runs for a lot of Fortune companies. This is a program that he usually, his organization usually charges, companies like Sprint, Verizon, and other organizations like that about $20,000 to do this practitioner program. And so he's going to be giving away a scholarship for this practitioner program on Wednesday's stream. And so let me read you just a little bit about that so that you've got a little bit of background as to what exactly we're going to be giving away on Wednesday. Identity is the foundation of any cybersecurity initiative, and IAM skills are expected to be in high demand for the foreseeable future. We've talked about that extensively on the stream. Identity Fusion Academy's IAM practitioner program is enabling tomorrow's IAM practitioners through an intensive 12-week program that provides students with the knowledge and experience necessary to obtain a career in the fast-paced world of identity and access management. The IAM practitioner program consists of interactive instructor-led training that includes introductory concepts, methodologies, best practices, and implementation experiences using real-world IAM products. Student comprehension is assessed through a series of quizzes, tests, and class projects that run throughout the entire program. Students that successfully complete the program will be able to demonstrate actionable skills in solving real-world IAM problems, thus making them valuable assets to companies implementing identity-centric projects. This is an amazing opportunity. We've got a lot of listeners on stream who are constantly asking us, I want to get into help desk and then ultimately get into cybersecurity, or how do I get into cybersecurity? Or if you're in a spot in cybersecurity where you want to take your cybersecurity to, the next level, this is an amazing opportunity to get on with a program that literally is going to transform you into a very, very marketable cybersecurity practitioner in a space that, Roger will probably speak to this a little bit later when we talk about some of the things in the news. Identity is not going away, and I think it's been overlooked in the industry for years. And I think that this is a fantastic opportunity for anybody out there. So that's going to be Wednesday. You do have to be on stream. You do have to be present for that to win. We will be doing that giveaway. Obviously, we're going to do it at the end of the stream because we want you to listen to the whole stream to do it. So you do have to be around on Wednesday's stream to be eligible for that. So with that being said, Our guest list does continue to grow. We're currently working with about 24 people and companies that are interested in coming on stream and talking to all of us as a cybersecurity community. As always, we're evaluating these on a case-by-case basis because we want to make sure that we're able to provide you guys with the quality content for our community. And so stay tuned to Twitter and to LinkedIn for announcements of future guests. Let's talk real quick about a couple of cyber insecurity community announcements for everybody. I did see emails go out last week for our winners from the giveaway that we did a couple weeks ago. And so the folks who won, the free pen testing course and the discounted pen testing course, you guys should have gotten emails from eLearn Security about that. Apologize for that taking so long. They have now given Cyber Insecurity our own access code as part of our sponsorship deal with them. And so that really gives us a lot of leeway to do more giveaways, which I know everybody's excited about. But it'll also get you through that process faster. So if you're, if you haven't gotten those emails, or if you're still struggling with that process, please reach out to me directly via DM or email or something like that. Official beta signups and emails did start going out / being collected today for the beta program. So for those who weren't on stream last week, ELS/INE training is doing a beta for their brand new super awesome platform to do cybersecurity training. Folks who participated in the stream a couple weeks ago got kind of advance notice of this beta and should start seeing a lot of information coming their way about that. The official normal beta is now out and officially public. I'm going to post that link into chat for literally everybody who's watching the stream right now. So now it's kind of GA for everybody that's out there. If you make it into beta, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly with feedback, and I'll make sure it gets to the right person. I do have some updated timelines for folks who do get the beta invite. So today the beta signups did start going live, so they were about 15 days behind. It's beta. What do you expect? They're hoping to launch the beta access by September 28th. So again, they're about 15 days behind. So you've got about 15 days before they're actually ready to launch the access into the beta program. And then as promised, they're going to have 30 days of actual beta testing on that to collect feedback and things like that. And so, I did make sure that everybody who pre-signed up through us is on, the guaranteed list of folks to get access. And so you've got about 15 more days for that to happen, but we'll continue to keep everybody updated on that. So that is it for the logistics today. As always, if there's any questions about that, don't hesitate to DM me, DM Carmen Mod, DM any of the other mods if you've got any other questions. Remember to keep the questions flowing inside of chat. And with that, we are actually going to hit the news for today. Now, I couldn't help it. I just couldn't leave it out for today. And so we're going to talk about Oracle and TikTok. And then this is not a political conversation by any stretch of imagination. You know that we don't ever talk about any of the politics here on the stream. But I absolutely did. I know a lot of folks that I talked to, we had a moment where it was like, where the heck did this come from? And so if you weren't aware, TikTok has actually chosen to partner with Oracle after losing the Microsoft bid. And when you go down a couple of different articles, you can see this Reuters article talks about ByteDance deciding altogether that it was not going to sell TikTok to any U.S. operation, whether it was Oracle or Microsoft or whatever else. And this came through some of the politics that we're not going to get into with China and U.S. and things like that. They did decide that they hoped that they would be able to partner with Oracle, in hopes of avoiding that U.S. ban. And so I bring all this up to say this was the absolute best meme that I saw today over this whole Oracle TikTok thing, right? 3 billion devices run TikTok, the number one spyware platform. This is, again, a good poke at Java and whatnot. And so with all this being said, Roger, I want to kind of turn this over to you, right? I didn't see this coming. Did you see this coming? What do you think Oracle's long-term play is here on this?
I had Sharknadoes for August as well. So, I can't say that there's any science behind this, but no, I did wonder about this. Earlier on in the time frame, there was like one comment out there that mentioned that not only was Microsoft looking, but Walmart was looking and Oracle was looking, and Walmart immediately backpedaled and they said, no, we're working with Microsoft. And then you got to think about it from the cloud perspective, right? Walmart has their own cloud, and many of their vendors and many that they work with, they want them to operate within Walmart's cloud because the time to delivery and the communications is so much easier. So there's something there. But if Walmart is working with Microsoft on TikTok, then that's more like an all-out buyout. And I didn't think that ByteDance was going to be good with that, because that's not a win-win scenario. That's a win-lose scenario. You know, but with Oracle, I mean, the best meme that I actually saw popped up on Twitter was, "I'd like to congratulate Oracle on their first customer on Oracle Cloud." So that, to me, I thought was the best memo on this one.
But what is it that Oracle is going to be able to use with this? I mean you gotta think they're primarily driven to developer based applications, or even the SAP front. What data could they possibly glean from something like TikTok that would make their business model stronger? I mean, is this really just about pushing TikTok into Oracle Cloud and showing the robustness and the resiliency of their cloud operations platform?
Well, Oracle's been building the cloud for years and trying to get out of, either single tenant, which is what they've done in their Oracle hosted before, trying to be able to step up and play with Azure and play with GCP, and play with AWS. So I think from that aspect, you have an opportunity to do this, but also think about it as, who is the primary users of TikTok? Now, I'm not going to go down on the place where I think there's a lot of stuff going on TikTok that I wouldn't like my granddaughters to be doing.
Sure.
But there's a lot of stuff, but you got to look at the age range that people are going on. And so if you're the technology partner and you are working with the opportunity to get some of that data, some of that telemetry data, and be able to understand this from that age group, you now do have a competitive advantage of understanding what the next generation is looking for from technology. So I think that there is a value prop there, not only just to prove that they can compete and provide a world-class service like GCP, Azure, and AWS as well, not just an app-driven, as Oracle is known for in the ERP and space. But this is that opportunity to actually really step out there and look at something that's really 100% consumer space, and to show that they're a competitor. And at the same point, they're capturing that type of telemetry data to understand that generation and that age group of the population, and what they're looking for and what their needs are, or what their goals are, what they're trying to do.
I don't think there's any doubt that when people look at TikTok, they're looking at I think you put it really good, right? The telemetry of the data that you'd get out of an application or a platform like TikTok. I think when I look at it from a cybersecurity perspective, though, Oracle's track record with consumer, if you will, or developer type, platforms such as Java and things like that, don't exactly raise it to the top of the list when it comes to security. Does it concern you when we talk about the rise and the amount of data that could, or the telemetry that could be at the behest of a company like Oracle, and their history with something like Java? Does that concern you? Do you think that we should be more concerned than if somebody like a Microsoft, or heck, even a Walmart, had picked them up?
So there's a learning curve, and there's a maturity for all these companies going there, right? The difference is when you look at the challenges that Oracle has, and I'm doing this from let's look at both sides of the picture here, because it'd be really easy to jump on the bandwagon and point out all the flaws, all the qualified SOC 2s and SOC 1 reports that Oracle's had as they've gone through their hosted service, and jump on that bandwagon. That's all normal knowledge. But this is a different animal. This is a different type of service offering. This goes back to, great, they're going to be the technology partner, but even with AWS, Azure, GCP, they're still continuing to focus today on bringing in native security technologies that are native to their platform, to bolster and to provide more transparency, more visibility in what they're doing. They're just a little bit further on that curve than where an Oracle's at. If you're going to be there, you're going to have to go through this, and you're going to have to be prepared for the bumps in the road. So I just see that as part of that curve, and learning curve.
I think what I hear you say is you're reserving your confidence because you think that Oracle is going to have that same learning curve that every other organization who's tried to go out and do these big data, consumer projects like Facebook and Instagram, Twitter and everybody else. You think Oracle is now saying we're ready to take that challenge on ourselves?
Well, no, I don't think they're taking that challenge on the same as the others because they're the technology partner. They're more of the AWS for these applications. That's the way I read it. Maybe I'm reading it
Mm,
wrong, but
mm.
I don't see this as they're actually going to be owning the app. They're going to be owning the platform as a service the app's going to run on, or the
Just the
infrastructure as a service
technology
it's going to
itself.
run on. Just the technology. So I think that gives them a little bit of buffer and separation from that other risk, which I think is why that's going to be the learning curve, similar to an AWS or to a GCP. It's not going to be the same impact of looking at G Suite risks
Mm,
for Google, and whether or not they could provide end-to-end encrypted communication for Gmail up to a certain point, then they were able to make it happen and they start moving forward. So I think TikTok itself, and I think ByteDance, they have an obligation and they're already in that area and they're already being looked at that way. To me, this is a moot change to a US platform base and to be able to provide a platform base. And unfortunately, the way this thing's going around, there's going to have to be some transparency with the federal government because they're in the middle of this negotiation to begin with, which is not a great place.
do you think that transparency, and do you think that Oracle owning the technology platform, do you think that that's enough to provide the level of transparency into the consumer data privacy issues that TikTok has been renowned for over the last year or so?
Okay, now I'm going to take a shot.
Go for it.
All right. It didn't help us when Yahoo wrote a backdoor in for the federal government into their stuff.
Right.
Right. So I don't think you can actually use that as your test and your litmus test. I think that the transparency has to be there, but I think it's our responsibility to hold them accountable. I don't think it's a governmental responsibility because that creates more process and more overhead that doesn't actually be able to execute faster and identify where those risks are. I think that's our job in the security industry.
I think that's very well said, and I'd like to take that opportunity to, speaking of us taking responsibility and ownership for the things that are going on in the cybersecurity community, let's kind of jump over to yet another controversy kind of happening in the industry, right? Where fraud prevention startups. So this is a startup company, NSA, that was recently had gotten some rounds of VC money, about $100 million worth of VC money. To actually do fraud prevention, lays off hundreds, CEO departs amidst an SEC fraud investigation. This is literally one of those cases where an organization has a fantastic idea, they go out and they raise a bunch of VC money, and we've said it on the stream hundreds of times that I think, and a lot of us here in the community think that there's too much money, inside of cybersecurity, and this is a case where an organization runs out and raises $100 million pretty easily, and then turns around and closes their doors and shutters everything due to some type of investigation into fraud themselves. What's really your take on this?
Okay, so full disclaimer, I know and have very good relationships with two of the venture capitalist companies behind NSA. So that doesn't mean I have any insider information. That means that I respect and know how they operate, and they're not what I would put in the category of those VCs that are out there, just throwing money at ideas without really vetting them out properly. So I think this was very well vetted.
Hmm.
I have had a conversation about NSA about 9 months ago with one of those individuals, and everything I saw was incredibly impressive.
Hmm.
This to me, and I can actually point to a couple others where there were struggles in that area. I don't think the doors are closed yet. I think they had about 225 employees, and I think that now they have about 25 employees, maybe. I don't know the exact numbers, but it sounds like someone, whether deliberately or unintentionally, went against financial rules. That's my guess.
Hmm.
That's my
Hmm.
guess from the top. So whether the technology works or not, everything I saw about this when about, I guess it'd be about 9, 10 months ago now.
Hmm.
Technology was awesome, fantastic. What are you doing? How are you doing it?
Hmm.
But there's so much technology that gets the impact of is your go to market, and can you run a business, and can you make that happen? And that's one of the challenges, and why for the last 15 years I've been an advocate to working and helping with startups. I'm at a startup now. I took the full leap and jumped into a startup myself, to really identify and help them realize that It takes every different piece of how you run a business to make a successful business. You don't just win off a good tech. So this one to me is an incredibly painful thing for the community. They just raised over $100 million. I think they had over 150 million all total. They're just Series A. So, they're really right out the gate. They're not on the back stretch. And, an SEC fraud investigation and, this big of layoffs at this point could spell doom, and people could be losing a lot of money and a lot of investment in this area, and we don't know why yet. And I'm always the person that wants to find out why it happened. I'm not going to start. I don't believe in pointing fingers and seeing what's going on. I do know of other organizations that have had bumpy roads in there, including having some SEC investigations come in. And I've watched founders exit companies before for that reason. So this isn't the first. This isn't the last. But again, the one thing that I actually applaud in what's going on right now is that information security professionals, our positions are getting raised to a higher level of visibility, so that when things are going on that may not have the same level of integrity as we see things from the digital world, that we can actually have the voice to raise that voice and to say something. So I think that this will probably end up being a great use case for discussions on what not to do, and help to raise the conversation and help to understand that you've got security, you've got privacy, but those of us in the industry always talk about the impact of fraud and the impact of what that means, because in many cases, even in our industry, and I'm going to segue just a hair.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. In a regular security incident, whether security breach or whatever it is, most cases people don't get in trouble because there was a breach, right? They look at it, they figure out what they did wrong, they figure out how to fix it, they do the root cause analysis, they move forward. If they respond the right way. Most cases, what happens and becomes a big deal, and we all hear about it in the news, is when there's a breach and then someone tries to cover it up or tries to shift a little bit. And so, that to me, that falls a little bit into the fraud category. So to me, that's where I see some of this of, there's a huge amount of empathy today that there may not have been in technology 30 years ago when I started. But that empathy today is understanding that no one's perfect, but we identify. It's the same thing as called learning fast. You identify, you
right.
strive, you try. You're not going to be perfect every time. You're going to make mistakes. Learn from it. Don't make the same mistake twice, but be transparent about it.
So you said a lot there. You said a lot there that I want to try to unpack on a couple things on there. Real quick in chat, right? Edward Malice in chat says it was a better idea than the Juicerio, at least looking at you, Alphabet Inc. I don't know if you want to comment on that one.
I don't. It's a great comment, but I'm not getting into that. I appreciate it though. Not gonna happen.
Not gonna have it on that one. So I think when you talk about that, right, you're talking, the cover up is worse than the crime oftentimes, and we've talked about this on stream a number of times. When you look at the Garmin hack versus like the Twitter hack, granted, one was ransomware and one was a social media, social engineering type of hack, but you can look at the two incidents, if you will, and look at them in the lens of who is more transparent and not, and we still don't have a whole lot of transparency around the Garmin hack, and I think that's a problem that we have holistically. I think I've stood on a platform that said that I would expect as a shareholder, if I was a major shareholder of Garmin, even if I was a minor shareholder of Garmin, I would want to see in the 10K what the that they paid some millions of dollars of ransom for whatever ransom they paid for their Garmin hack, and so I think transparency as a whole is an amazingly dumb problem that we have in our industry, to kind of echo your point. But I want to go back to this, and it sucks that it's good to hear that you're an advocate for their technology and that it is good technology. It's rare that we do hear that about some of these VC firms. But I want to go back to your comment about.
By the way, there used to be a Garmin watch on the Switch. There used to be a Phoenix watch right here. There's not right now. To your point. Yeah.
You got rid of that one, huh? After that one.
Transparency important. What's actually going on here? Yeah.
Exactly. Back to the transparency and back to the VC money thing, because I want to pull on that thread a little bit, and I want to ask you very specifically, especially since you are in a startup right now. if I were to say to you, there's too much money in cybersecurity, especially in the startup realm of the VC realm, agree or disagree?
Disagree.
Why?
Because it's not the money that's the issue.
What's the
It's how
issue
you
then?
spend it. It's how you spend it.
You don't think that we have a problem where, somebody can come up and say, I've got this fantastic idea for a technology or a service or a platform or anything else, and it will insert fancy FUD or fancy marketing words here, reduce cyber risk, go to RSA, give a paid talk at RSA, and then have every CISO in the world calling them up and or calling their security folks up and wanting them to go implement this technology. You don't think that we have that problem because of too much money in cybersecurity?
That's how you spend it. That's not that we have too
You,
much money
you're
there.
you're
That's how you
considering that
spend
how
it.
you spend that money?
Yeah, yeah. The reality is that um, the concept of I'm going to throw money at you, and then I may have people on staff within my VC, or I may have connections for go-to-market strategy and everything else. But you're the founder, you have the tech. I've seen some phenomenal tech out there. Um, the money has to come with the right level of support, and there has to be that right level of visibility to be able to make that money valuable.
Hmm.
And no, I'm gonna name. It's part of it's, you can look at my LinkedIn profile. So it's gonna be really simple. Um, I had the opportunity and the honor of doing a short executive in residence with YL Ventures, who has offices in Northern California and in Tel Aviv. And in that process, the project was to actually see what that impact and value is. But what I saw while working for them, and I'm a huge advocate for YL and the work they do, they only bring Israeli tech to market.
Mm.
So it's not probably as valuable to all your listeners if they're looking to be an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
But for looking for pretty good tech, it's a good place to go.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not the only VC that I work with, but this is where I got this in-depth look, and the integrity that they had of evaluating new tech and coming up and identifying tech that was incredibly good and investing and making that investment, and then meeting up and starting to learn about another founder with another type of tech, but that tech's in the same area, and that tech is amazing.
Mm.
But they've already invested here, so they're not gonna invest here. They're not gonna split their bet, right? They're not going to double down in that area and now invest and push two companies that are going to compete against each other in the market. That's how you spend your money correctly.
Mm.
Right. And so when I say that, that's what I'm saying about is if you're looking at technology, you're looking at areas, whether it's cybersecurity or whether it's other technologies as well, you invest in that, you give them the support from giving them access to mentors in sales and marketing, give them access to mentors in how to build a secure cloud infrastructure to be able to sell to an enterprise industry. Right. You do that, you provide them the tools to be able to do that. Then you're not spending your money poorly, and that money is then invested properly. There's so much money out there right now that it's actually I think it's actually good for the founders, because they can find money that's gonna value them appropriately, so they get the right valuation for their tech, which means they're gonna have the monies to actually build their tech properly. So I'm not afraid of how much money there's out there. What I'm really pushing for, though, is more integrity in that process.
When you talk about that integrity, because I think I could get on board with this statement. I want to pick at it a little bit more on this. I think I could actually be in a position of changing my mind on this. But do you think that, because I'm gonna make a statement that I don't agree with, do you think that the industry appropriately filters out companies that do spend that money correctly versus the ones that don't?
That's a terrible question that I don't want to
I'm
answer.
very, very well known for terrible questions.
Okay, we're gonna go back all the way back into that red stapler days, right? Um, and if anyone remembers from that time frame, the primary UPS, I don't know if the power source that people used for IDFs and for the data centers, was not the best one out there, but they had the best marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So using that as an example and then bringing that full forward, there's companies out there today that have some of the best marketing or amazing in marketing, but their tech doesn't work very well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that you've got polarization at both ends of those. You've got incredible tech with really bad marketing. You've got really good marketing with really bad tech, or just mediocre tech, right? And I think you've got an industry though that doesn't want to focus on really good tech, especially if you're looking in the enterprise business. I think you're looking at industry that's trying to get the best bang for their buck because they're being forced to do more with less year over year on a continuous basis. And instead of companies acknowledging that they have to actually increase and manage their technology budgets as their company grows in that growth pattern, but understand that there's also a bell curve for any technology implementation, which falls back to any company that's providing a new leg of revenue or business model, new product or additional feature sets, that you have that same investment kick, and that investment kick is for R&D, and that investment kick is for security and privacy and operations. And once they get that math figured out, to where they can actually understand the cost of bringing a new product to market, then we can balance, and then operational departments can get funded appropriately. But until that happens, they're going to look for what's the value add, right? They're going to fall down to what's the one throat to choke,
Sure.
which you've all heard before, right? That's not my quote. I did not make that. I didn't do that. Don't even go after me on chat. But the one throat to choke, how do I get 70% efficacy out of this? Because I can never do a zero sum game, and I can never have a perfectly secure environment. I can never have a perfect technology. And so they've already lowered the bar to either 80 or 70% just to get out the door. And so when this new technology comes around, the technology that is going to get the most attention is going to be the technology that provides some type of a platform, not just a feature or not just a product. Because products can be acquired, especially when you have a singular gap or if there's some type of event that happens. And features are normally going to get gobbled up and they're going to get caught, and then we're going to see what happens with technology at that point. So I think that this is the problem we have. And I think that the problem is how technology is acquired and purchased and how that's operated. And I think that all comes back to how do you actually address what your budget is providing you from a technology standpoint. And as we as technologists, can we actually define our budget the right way to help the business understand that we're not just an operational cost, but there's a value prop that's part of cost of goods sold that also comes along with what we do, and that there's a different impact that has to be quantified when companies pivot, when they go through digital transformations, when they choose new market lines, when they do acquisitions. And as that's where I see there's a big gap, and a great conversation we could have at a later date.
No, that's fair, but I think again, just to put a finer point on it, because I think you made some very valid points there. I think to put a finer point on it is that, we as cybersecurity folks throughout the community, we allow these substandard is probably the best way to put it. These substandard security solutions to exist in our market space because we've yet to have the right conversations at the board of directors and the executive tier level, or maybe we're not having the right conversations at the CISO level that says that we shouldn't put up with, or you have to give us more appropriate funding to have the right solution or the better solution. Maybe not necessarily the Ferrari of EDRs, but we can't deal with the Pintos of EDRs. We're not having the right conversations at those levels so that we can force those people out of market.
Well, I think there's a different definition of what you consider substandard, because I think substandard of themselves, they will get themselves pushed out at some point, right? So I don't think we're actually talking about substandard, unless you want to talk about my lexicon, because I can't stand mediocre. Right. So I hold myself to an incredibly high bar. I hold technology to an incredibly high bar, because we can do better. And I think that a lot of people miss out. And in some conversations, I've actually been a little flippant in the past of, making sure that people actually realize that we're dealing with protecting data, and the integrity of that data depends upon who's using it, who your customers are, or what industry you're in, is life safety issues.
Right.
Right. It's one thing if we talk about, credit card data, right? Because there's impact there, but hopefully that there's not a secondary impact that becomes life safety because a credit card being stolen. But in many other areas, we talk about those decision-making process and having the right information to make those decisions. And I'm going to bring this all the way back to NS8. I'm not sure if it fits or not. But if the wrong data is being delivered because the data doesn't have integrity to make business decisions within your company, that impacts how your company operates. And that impact can flow down into loss of revenue, which can flow down to, reductions in force. Hopefully not, 90% of your company.
Right.
But in that area, the decisions you make really do have that impact. And so there's a life impact. There's a quality of life impact to making those right decisions.
Okay.
Having the right data to make those decisions.
I think that's fair. I think you've convinced me to where maybe I'll change my nomenclature away from too much money in cyber to where we still have a problem where we don't, organizations who are seeking VC money don't spend that money appropriately. They don't spend it on the tech as much as they should.
Yeah, we don't need 14-year-olds buying Ferraris, but the money that's out there and the way the money got there, it's like let's make the right decision and let's make the right purchases.
Absolutely. So heading over to chat, looks like a security guru guy makes a glib little comment, says, "Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm here to tell you about the most important security breakthrough since passwords, EDR for your EDR. What can I put you down for?" That's cynicism that you can expect right there out of security guru guy.
Okay, so by the way, 3 years ago, the best quote I ever got, and I'm gonna call him out, Justin. I hope you don't mind. There was a question. We were at a hosted VC event, and the VC says, "What's the one thing that you want us to stop doing?" And Justin said, "Stop investing in EDR." Okay, so there's your quote, security guru guy. And we all nodded, we all agreed, and we all wished that we would have made that quote. But that was about a specific type of tech, and at that time, and CrowdStrike was already there. Carbon Black was already there. Tanium was already there when this quote was made, right?
Yeah.
The investments were made. But yes, there is specificity in stop investing in this type of tech. That doesn't mean there's too much money in tech. It means focus on what you can actually solve.
I think that's fair. Let me, since you brought up EDR, and I know that this wasn't on the docket, we weren't going to go down this hole, right? But since you brought it up, and I did have CrowdStrike on maybe a month and a half ago or so, and I asked them this question. This was right when Qualys had released their EDR, and I think about 2 months before then, I had actually written an article based on when Velociraptor, which was an open source EDR, had gone out, and I had wrote an article that basically had said, I think we've now seen the commoditization of EDR, in our space when you start to see open source tools come out on it. And keep in mind, I've been a Carbon Black fan since 2008, 2011, 2012, around in that area. So I'll pose this one to you, just since you brought it up and since you were in part of those conversations around EDR at the time. Is, do you think now we have officially seen the commoditization of EDR, and to your point, we should really stop investing in this idea of EDR?
I think it's morphing. I think the term EDR is now moving into the same category that antivirus was instead of anti-malware, and as we go. And in that realm, the gentleman who actually founded Carbon Black is now looking at how that worked on endpoints, and obviously he sold that company, and now he's got a new company up and running, and he's looking at understanding those same context of what made EDR work, but actually do that for SaaS. And so the growth of building off of what you know and that morphing, I think, is really important. I don't think you can stagnate because technology continues to change. And I think that's one thing I like about this industry, is that if you ever kind of like take a break and stop and rest on your laurels for 6 months, you might be a little behind the curve by then.
You might. I think you could say that you are. I mean, I think if we were to just pick on EDR for a second, I think if we were to just focus on CrowdStrike, Carbon Black, and SentinelOne. God, I hope I've got one of my friends from each of those companies listening to the stream tonight. You don't have to make yourself aware if you don't want to, but I think that we saw them move away from EDR into next gen AV, which I think, to your point, is their migration to try to go head to head with some of the AV vendors. But I think you have a problem, in the EDR space where, and look at Tanium, right? Tanium started as an IT ops tool that then wanted to do EDR, and they screwed it up immensely. And I think EDR / next gen AV is kind of at that same cusp where it's like they could start to add in a lot of these IT ops fundamentals But then are they at the risk of doing what Tanium did and completely screwing it up as well? And then how do you take on some of the bigger players like BMC and other organizations in there? And so I'm wondering if we haven't hit the ceiling for EDR/NGAV vendors like CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, and Carbon Black. And what do we see as the next point for them, or do we really think they're going to take on some of those IT ops, platforms?
Okay. So I'd like to disclaim this to the fact that I have no stock in CrowdStrike.
Okay.
I have no official relationship with CrowdStrike, but I'm a huge CrowdStrike fan. Hi, George.
Okay.
So
give me money, George.
No, I'm not doing this for that reason.
No VC money involved in that one.
No VC money. Well, CrowdStrike's actually doing their own funding, so they're actually investing in other tech. But you have to look at the way these operate and how they grow. Okay, so CrowdStrike built the platform first, and they built an endpoint to do EDR. Mm-hmm. Platform is growing and bringing them beyond that, which is why, and I'm not going to call it next gen AV. I'm just going to go directly to ATP because it's advanced threat protection, right? Which EDR is still a component of that point. So I think that they're actually doing it or thinking about it the right way. And in that manner, they're actually already have a platform to do the integration with the other parts of your security stack to be able to capture and share and then get the transparency of getting a holistic view of what's going on across all your services. And they were able to share their information back and forth across that platform. They're making those partnership relationships today, which is fantastic. They're not the only ones doing it. There's others that are doing it as well. And that's the difference between a platform and a solution. And that's where that next growth stage is coming from, because you have to be able to integrate. You can't, it's not a one tool to solve all, which is what a lot of CIOs I know are looking out there. They're looking for that one throat to choke. And what I'm looking at is for that ability to integrate and partner with and enhance the rest of your security stack, because the time of being able to do a rip and replace really isn't there anymore. It's really too costly to do that. And so how do you leverage that so that then you can go through your regular life cycle of your vendors and go through that 3-year, 4-year life cycle of their efficacy, or do you need to upgrade, and do you need to migrate off and do a rip and replace based upon where your company is going, where they're doing, but do that in a thoughtful manner without it blowing up for 6 months your entire security stack and your threat program.
Very insightful. So you're a CrowdStrike fan. We need to have somebody on who's from Carbon Black and from SentinelOne, and we need to put you guys in the death match and have you three go at it.
Bring it. But I want Ben Johnson on here from Obsidian, since he started Carbon Black and now he's got Obsidian going. I want to bring him in as well.
Yeah, let's do that. Edward Mollis comes back and says, would the UPS supplier you were talking about be a shorter way of saying armored personnel carrier by any chance?
Yes, absolutely. I love that. That's perfect.
Yeah. Another comment in chat: because the best tech is highly researched and engineered and costs more, and salesmen from the substandard meet the execs over golf and sell the cheaper solution. Again, more cynicism coming from security guru guy. But do you think that's an example of where that money gets spent? Is the over marketization of how pre-sales and exec relationships work for some of the substandard solutions versus talking about the highly engineered and highly researched functions?
Well, so that's why I don't think there's too much money invested in tech.
Yeah,
right.
It goes back to how it's being spent.
You have to spend that money to be able to do that. I think there's a lot of cynicism in the comment though, because the going out and playing golf as those types of sales reps, that era is gone. And I'm not blaming COVID for that. That was gone before COVID. The more contextualized conversations that are more meaningful are the ones that have been happening. And so this shift has been going on for quite a while, and I applaud it. I got one to this point. I got an email offering to take me down to have a conversation over sushi. I got that email just yesterday, and let me give you my response. I'm the chief security officer. I can afford to buy my own sushi.
That's pretty good.
So yeah, I think everything's turned. I think that having those more valid conversations, I think that's coming. I think it's because we're networking better. the community of information security professionals are, we are, we're feeding information to each other. We know who we are. We know what's really going on with the tech out there better than anyone else does.
Mm-hmm.
And we get paid for that. It's important, but we're actually doing it now. And technology and different types of communication tools like this stream that you're doing on Twitch is one of those ways that information is getting out there. And so this is where our learning curve has to come in to make sure that we're on top of our game and we can see this. And this is where phenomenal VCs are actually adding into this process by also opening up those doors and being able to have those conversations as well. And so the smart VCs, they're getting that feedback in that area, and they're not doing it just for the cost of a steak dinner.
Okay, that's good to know. Vordor says it's all a cost that they can't see the benefit from unless there's an incident that can justify spending more than the bare minimum. I think if I were to reword that question, or that statement, would it be, do you think the executives are tone deaf to the cost of cybersecurity until there's an incident?
I think that there's enough of that to make that statement, comfortable for a lot of people. And again, being in this for a long time, that was absolutely the case 20 years ago. However, I'll push back on that a little bit about pick your executives in the company you work for as well.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you look at what company you want to work for, that interview is a two-way street, and you need to look at it that way. And so, you need to be able to understand the culture you're walking into and what your role in that culture is. And if the role is to be that checkbox and fall guy, then you've got to be comfortable accepting that role, or I recommend you don't do it. If you walk in and you work with a role that actually opens that door and gives you that access so that you can have those real communications with the right leadership to where you can help them understand and walk them through even a simple tabletop so they can understand what that impact and risk is. And if you have the ability to communicate technical risk into business risk to be able to have that conversation, I don't think you're going to have that same problem. I know that in some companies I've been at, I've had that problem. I know in other companies I haven't. So, we don't all make good decisions, but hopefully we'll all learn from them. But if you're in a publicly traded company, the NACD, the National Association of Corporate Directors, actually has learning material for boards of directors talking about third-party risk management and cybersecurity. They've been on this bandwagon for over 10 years now, and boards are picking up more cybersecurity professionals as independent board members on public boards as we speak. So this fight isn't over, but I think that we're going in the right direction.
So I want to pick on the board comment here in a little bit when we talk about some of our next subject, but I want to pick on something you said. We've got another career section that I want to hit a little bit later on, but okay. We've got a range of folks who listen to this stream, right? We've got everybody from analysts who, we've got people who are just getting out of the military, transitioning into civilian life, and we've got analysts, and we've got all the way up to CISOs and whatnot on, that either watch the stream live or check out the YouTube later on. We're gonna have a whole career section later, so we don't have to dive too deep into this now. But your comment about interviewing back and making sure that the interview is a two-way street, I want you to just elaborate on that. That wasn't meant just for a cybersecurity executive, was it?
No, that's for any role. I mean, the now look, you're not going to get it. It's meant for any role. Who you get to talk to is going to be based upon what your role in the company is. But if you don't ask questions in that process, I'll be honest, savvy hiring managers, they're not going to hire you. If you assume that this is a one-way street and you're there just to answer their questions, you're probably not going to be the candidate of choice.
I agree with that. We'll get into more of that later, but I just want to make sure you cleared up that point real quick. Edward Malice says, again, same old story in IT generally. If you're doing your job well, you don't know they're there, which means the bean counters put you on the chopping block first. Man, there's a whole lot of cynicism in chat today.
Oh, I want that one. I want to respond to that.
You want that one?
Okay.
Go for it.
Yeah, I want that one. So many times I hear, we're going to ninja this, we're going to ninja that, because this opinion that if you're doing a good job, no one knows who you are. Yeah, no, not going there. That's not me. we're going to pirate this. Okay. They're going to know when we come to do our job. They're going to know when our job is done, and they're going to know when we leave, and they're going to know why. Now, in some cases, we're information security, so that's not going to be the best conversation to have. But in other cases, it's really easy to make that a phenomenal conversation. And that's what I said earlier about presenting your program and helping people understand that it's business enablement. That's the key concept of a security program. You're not just an operational cost, right? CIOs have been working on this for a number of years already, working to try to be able to present and show them that the help desk isn't just an operational cost, but it's an enabler to people being able to be productive, right? Same thing with InfoSec. We're just not really that good at it because we were always been told to be quiet. And if we're quiet and if no one knows what happened, then we did a good job. No, let's pirate this thing.
Can I pick on your we're not good enough a little bit, and I want to take a little tangent to that because I've said this numerous times before. Is I don't think we in cybersecurity, I think we're still heads down trying to solve the Rubik's Cube about the technology challenges and how to implement it, how to stop bad guys, and how to be nerds. We haven't figured out how to take our head up and look upward and be able to communicate to the executives. I don't think we've figured out how to talk about the ROI of threat reduction, the ROI of being able to stop a threat before it ever happens, or even the ROI of responding to an incident before it turns into a breach or, some type of business loss, scenario. Do you think that, do you agree with that, number one? And then how do we solve that problem?
So, yes, I agree with that. I think you said it really well. I'm going to use another analogy because I was watching a movie last night, Sum of All Fears.
Good movie.
And yeah, Jack Ryan was sitting in the back row, but he was sitting there and he was trying to make a point that the Russians didn't make that bomb. And his mentor said to him no, because he was about to say something that didn't actually sell or didn't actually resonate based upon who was in the room.
Right.
And Jack Ryan in the movie lost his credibility right there because he said the wrong thing, right? It's awesome that you've got your head down and you're cranking that Rubik's Cube, but if you don't know why you're trying to solve that, and if you can't articulate that, then why are you spending your time that way?
Yeah, very much so.
Right. So, and I know phenomenal people, and I actually my description of one individual is this is probably one of the most amazing incident response people I know, and I would never put him at an executive table.
Why not?
That's not his skill set. That's not his skill set. That is not when he can get Penn and Teller to speak. That is not his skill set, and that is not the best use of his talents. And so you have to identify and work around those talents in those areas. So that's one of those things that we have to be able to do well. If we're going to be elevated to be able to have a voice at that table, at that point in time, we have to be able to communicate to be able to provide them information so that they can make a decision based upon that information, right? If we provide them the information how we would make the decision, we have just failed.
We have just failed. It's getting the right intelligence to the right decision makers quickly.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
Chat is blowing up. As people who are tuning in, right, you can see that chat is coming down really hard. This is the value of this. So keep the comments and everything coming inside of chat as we talk through this. We'll just keep scrolling through chat here. Vordor says it's hard to justify the threat to when they don't see it or to be able to prove that it's out there until it happens. At that point, we're spending twice as much to try to fix the problem, and that's probably not even addressing the issue that was the problem.
No, absolutely. And I can't go into specifics on that. All I can tell you is that I cheat.
You cheat?
I cheat. I work for technology companies.
Yeah.
Okay. So my company, Big ID, we provide a data lifecycle platform that begins with data discovery. And then from that data discovery, provides you the ability to know, understand, and make decisions and understand contextually where your data is going, how it's being used, and everything else, right? So we sell to every business out there. So we're a B2B business. Because we're a B2B business and because we've just launched our cloud services as well, we have an obligation and we have an expectation that we're going to meet our customers' expectations and standards to protect the data that they're regulatory required to protect or industry required to protect. Those flow to us. So I cheat because my security program is based upon the service model and the delivery of our services and the expectations of our customers to be able to use our product. And so when I talk about and when I define what my program is, I don't only talk about it from an aspect of what the risks are of a data breach. I define what those risks are of a data breach based upon contractual obligations with our customers to help them understand exactly what that dollar amount, whether there's limited liability or unlimited liability based upon what happens in that process. And so I understand, I've had to educate myself and understand what that means from a math concept. And I've actually worked with AXA and worked with Marsh to really understand what that is, to be able to define what that really means. And so the math that I'm using in this manner when I talk about risk, and I had a phenomenal guy who used to work for me that's brilliant on risk, but the math we're using is the math that's important to the business model, not the math that says that $3.8 million is the average cost of a breach last year. Right. Ponyman and IBM are great with the report, but that's way too broad based to be able to actually use that argument within my organization. Works great in a webinar, by the way. Works phenomenal in a webinar, but not at the executive table.
Right. And then they hear that Pokemon number, and then they're like, well, what does that mean for us, or how does that relate to our specific vertical, or what are our peers doing, or how do we compare to our peers? And then it goes down a whole another rabbit hole that you thought you were going to get away with by citing that one statistic that you were not prepared for, because that's what the conversation actually really wants to go towards.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a big thing, is you have to be able to, well, I'm speaking to our board of directors on Thursday, right? I am preparing a slide deck where I'm trying to make sure that every one of those slides is going to create an environment to where they'll ask me the questions I want to answer, and not ask me questions that'll rat hole and spend my 45 minutes with the board. And yes, I have a sponsor on the board who's already reviewed the deck, who's already given me feedback to make sure that I'm doing the right thing, because you never go to a board cold. You always make sure you've got an insider on there who's your champion.
That's right. I think we could do a whole nother segment completely on how to do communications, and I see a lot of this coming up through chat, right? And Therson says, right, I feel like a lot of this is actually tying into the conversation we had last stream. Very much is Therson, and it's amazing how we continue to pull in a lot of those concepts from multiple streams with a lot of these leaders, and hopefully you guys are seeing, there's a common theme at the leadership and with a lot of the problems that we're all trying to solve, that we're all working towards the same, kind of North Star when it comes to trying to solve a lot of these conversations and whatnot. Edward says, fair point. I can imagine execs are reluctant to throw a lot of money at a sector like ours that's in such a flux in tech best practices that even the experts aren't sure what the best way to go about it is. I don't know what your take is on this, Roger. I don't necessarily think that execs are reluctant because of the state of flux. I think like what Security Guru guy says in chat and what Therson says a couple lines down, right, which comes back to leadership and communication. I think we as cybersecurity practitioners, and I think the current large majority of CISOs that are in place now, I think they have failed to communicate to the board on a level that they understand. Roger, I don't know if you want to chime in on that as well.
So I wonder how many have actually addressed and actually presented their decks in a way to help the board understand. And this is a question I had to bring up and actually have this conversation with a CIO I reported to in a previous role, of understanding what the life cycle of a vendor is, or life cycle of a technology is, right? How much time do you invest in evaluating, doing a POC, getting ready to pull the trigger, make the decision, and then start your implementation? How long does it take to implement? How long does then, once you got it implemented and tuned, how long does it take for you to actually validate return on investment and efficacy of the tool? Is it meeting your decision, your success criteria? And then how long does it take for you, once you've actually identified if it does not, how do you pull back to do a rip and replace? Or if it does, how do you then invest to get the full value out of the tool? And these are all part of programmatic responses, instead of having a conversation that sounds like a point in time. I can tell you that even as far back, and for those that actually remember from the introduction when I was at Brocade, The first time I got to speak to the board at Brocade, the final question was from the chairman of the board. And he asked, Roger, if I give you money and people, will we be secure? And it was a trick question,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the answer I gave Mr. House at the time was, Mr. House, if you don't give me the right money and the right people at the right time to build off, to create and then build off of a foundation, something that can then actually grow and mature, you'll never be secure. But we will, even if we're secure, we're still going to have the opportunity to be breached. And
Mm-hmm.
so that is part of that, building that foundation. That was my answer. And I think the answer is still today, but I find myself making sure that I call out the fact that investments are not one-time investments, that investments, have to true up at the end of the year. You have to be able to build your budgets. I actually did a webinar earlier this year talking about how to represent your budget properly, because, a lot of it comes down to dollars spent, what budget bucket those dollars are in, and what value they see out of that. And they don't, in many cases, they don't see value in dollars out of it if we're not reporting what we're doing with that money properly. And the metrics aren't the same as operational metrics. They're business metrics.
They're business metrics. They're focused on the business.
Yeah.
Looks like, yep. Harrison says, feel like a lot of this comes back to leadership. Hiring good leaders and managers can articulate the goal. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of standard workers don't communicate directly with the top. I think that's not an excuse per se. I think that we don't teach everybody in the cybersecurity chain about how to effectively communicate business risk. And I think as a result of that, we don't push business risk up at the right level. And so we're leaving it to directors and CISOs to try to communicate business risk. And by that time, there's not enough time to get the message to the right leaders. I think we have to be thinking about it lower level than what we're doing right now. Roger, I don't know if you want to.
I think, yeah, I'm going to get on a soapbox and segue on this one a little bit. And some people may not agree with me, but I think part of this is our fault. I think that there is more so than in a lot of other industries. I think there's a lot of what's the right term? And I'm losing the term right now. I can't remember the term. Anyway, the terminology is that I don't belong to be where I'm at. I'm not good enough to do what I do. Yeah. Sorry, I do this sometimes. I lose the term completely. We don't do enough around succession planning.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We spend a lot of effort. We work really hard to be able to consolidate because if we can't operate successfully unless we have champions in the business,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't have those relationships in the business. And I see phenomenal leaders, and I could name and point out a few, but they haven't bought me a drink lately because of COVID, so forget about it. That are really phenomenal on that succession planning, and really phenomenal on helping those individuals that are two rungs down, L1s or L2s. Thank you, imposter syndrome. Thank you so much, sir. Oh, that was killing me.
Well, but you got to follow up to that one with a question mark. Can you explain why you agree with that imposter syndrome?
Well, no, because imposter syndrome is: are we actually qualified to do this role and do this job? And because we're in a job that, for many cases, unless you take an entire culture and tactic pirate, when you get visibility, it's never a good thing. And then they're asking you what happened and why didn't your program protect from this and why you're doing this. And so imposter syndrome is absolutely one of those issues that really creates a challenge around confidence in the security community. But because of that imposter syndrome as well, it makes people cautious in what they say, how they say it, or what they have conversations with, because they're not confident that what they're saying could be accurate, or they could be challenged on it. And so that makes that they'll actually keep stuff closer to the chest, instead of being open and building that succession plan, bringing up that team, helping them understand what you're looking for, allowing them to be part of that presentation at that next level, and bringing them that into the process to where they can see that. At the same time, you're also helping yourself from that imposter syndrome mentality that we all do get hit with from time to time, because you're vetting what you're doing amongst your entire team. And many of us, as long as we can, without just without sharing any IP, also with our peers of sharing that information so that we can vet that. I don't think there's still enough of that. I think that there's a number of people that aren't doing that yet, or aren't doing that, and they're hesitant to do that because it's the company is always, and this is something that I saw a little bit earlier, companies are looking to actually, like, well, you're the CISO, we're paying you a really good salary. You've brought these new people in, they're doing a great job, but we're paying them less. Why do we need you?
Right.
And
right.
so I don't agree that that's something you should be worried about. I know from talking to my peers that that's an impact that's out there and that people deal with. But I think that we have to have more transparency. We have to have more empathy and more humility in being able to share and bring that along and build that succession path, so that when you have people that are a director of GRC, that are your L1 and are working that program, to give them the opportunity and visibility to your leadership as well, so that they can understand, and they can, or even if it's sitting in the room and being the Jack Ryan sitting against the wall, to actually hear what the question is that you're being asked while you're presenting to E-staff.
So this all sounds great in theory, Roger, but let me kind of bring it back to reality, because I think, and I'll be cynical, Neil, for a second here, right? This all sounds great, but this feels very much like a pipe dream. This feels like you're talking about breaking down, human culture, competitive nature inside of a business politics, corporate politics. You're saying we have to get through all of that first, let alone, you mentioned transparency, whether it's with our peers or with, inside of our own organization or things like that. We can't even be transparent to share threat intelligence indicators from within our own vertical sometimes. I think, if I were to be cynical, that all sounds good, but it also sounds like a pipe dream.
That's why I don't ninja, I pirate. It really is. But I can tell you, working for different organizations, I went through the leadership training in an organization where everything about that was building the relationships to be open and empathetic and humble, to be able to have those hard conversations. And that was actually expected of that culture. So the organizations are out there, and they're seeing that as well. And it's kind of funny. It's because I always make friends with HR first when I come into an organization. Because I want to understand the culture.
Sure.
Right. I want to understand what's going on. I try when I go into interview, I try to interview and I try to create one-on-one so I know what's going on. And it's kind of not politically correct, but when I walk in an organization, one of the questions I ask is, who's the adult in the room? Right. I want to know who's the person everyone goes to make the hard decision.
So in chat,
I want to understand why.
In chat, whatever meeting you go to tomorrow, I want you to walk in there and say, who's the adult in the room? Come back to the stream on Wednesday and let's see who still has a job.
You know what? I think it's a great question. I think they all have a job. I think they all have a job.
I say it cynically, but to your point, right? It's about coming in there and stepping up and being the adult in the room that says, all right, let's have a real conversation. Who wants to have a real conversation in this room?
I've definitely met some people who didn't want to do that. Those probably aren't people that I really want to work with again.
Yeah.
But I have this conversation in every company I go to. I mean, I had this conversation when I came into Big ID, and it was one of the first conversations I had, as I wanted to understand what the dynamics were, and it was a great conversation at Big ID. So it depends upon how you do this, how you ask that question, and you've got to figure out how that works for you. But that's just why I don't ninja, I pirate.
Pirate. Don't ninja.
When I walk into the room, the relationships I've built with the executives, they know what I'm there. They know I have a seriously sarcastic sense of humor as well, so it's already out there. It's expected in how I do my presentation. But we can have those conversations. I think that's incredibly important.
So we're gonna run a poll. Since this is going to be good, we're gonna find out how many people in chat are ninjas or pirates, right? So what's the difference between a ninja and a pirate, Roger?
So a ninja is exactly what you've heard about, right? If we do a good job, no one knows who we are, right? That's a ninja, right? You're in there, you're InfoSec team, you come in, you do your job, and you go away, you save the world today, you saved a meteor from hitting your company today. No one knows about it except for maybe the CIO, maybe the CTO, right? Um, my company, what's going on, if there's something going on, the executive team wants to know about it. They want to know what's going on, right? And they want to be able to understand how we do better. They're interested in making that happen.
So,
So, it's literally that simple, but that's based upon being able to build a relationship and showing the business value of what you do.
so let's ask chat right now. We're gonna throw up a poll. How many people in chat? Be honest with it. Let's go the polls on this. Are you, based on that definition, are you a ninja in your organization? Are you a cybersecurity ninja, or are you a cybersecurity pirate? Let's throw that poll up there. Let's leave that poll running for about 10 minutes, and let's see how that poll goes.
While that poll's going on, the other side of that is, as a pirate, you're looking at what you can get the best value out of every department that you work with and how they can help champion to get your stuff done, because you don't have all the funding you need, and you can't get anything done all by yourself. So, as pirates, we're coming in, we're using what we have. It's almost, you could also say it's the Marine Corps, overcome, adapt, improvise, right? So in that scenario, that's what my definition of being a pirate is because we're going to do everything we can with what we have.
Yeah.
But we're not just going to sit back and say, well, I couldn't do something because you didn't give me enough money last year.
What's that quote from Pirates of the Caribbean? Take what is required, but nothing more, or something like that. Whatever the case is. Anyway, it's cute. It's a cute quote. I'll have to look for that one. Going back to chat, honestly, we backed up on chat a little while. Imposter syndrome, we covered that one. Good point. It's me, honestly. Yeah, I think we need to recognize that there are a number of people in the security, engineer, architect roles that don't belong there. This field is newish and tends to attract charlatans. That's harsh.
Well, I wouldn't call them charlatans. I might call them enterprise solutions architects instead of security architects. That may be the way that I would say it, and I probably just offended a number of people here today. So, um,
We'll send them to your LinkedIn, not mine.
bring it, bring it. And if you come down to Texas, I'll buy you a drink too.
There you go. There you go. Crumb says, I never want to be the adult in the room. Crumbs is joining us from Australia. Glad he's awake enough to have a conversation with us. And Crumbs, I don't think anybody would ever mistake you for the adult in the room.
Well, he just woke up, so I hope he's got coffee because he just got up. So,
Pawnum Share, I keep calling him Pawnum Share. It's Pawn Muncher. Pawn Muncher. I would, but I'm still bummed about no golf meetings. N2X4 says, I'm not the adult. I go every time I write a vulnerability assessment vulnerability ass instead of spelling assessment. Yeah. Emin Muncher, who I guess is stealing his name from Pawn Muncher, says, how big is your company and what % are engineers?
So I work for a high-tech startup company. So I'm going to answer for my company, then I'm going to answer for my last company, then I'm going to answer for the company before that.
Okay.
So because this is based upon experience across multiple companies, all in the high-tech industry. My company is, if I get this right now, we're approximately 200 users. Out of those 200 users, over half are engineers.
Wow.
Right now, we're a U.S. Israeli company. So we have a large chunk of our engineering out of Tel Aviv, and that's actually our largest office. Now, when I was the CISO for Informatica, before this, we were a company of about 2,500 people. And again, we had probably over 60% were engineers, and that engineering was scattered throughout the world, from Israel to India to the US to Canada, because Informatica had a number of acquisitions, and while they consolidated and integrated the corporate IT functions, they identified the value of the people where they were at and what they were doing in those organizations, and so they kept them there. So, and I can go back and back that way, but I think the point of the question, though, is I work for technology companies. That's what I've built my reputation on. Um, and so those companies are large component engineers, and that actually requires you to speak three different languages, because you have to be able to speak IT, you have to be able to, well, four languages. You have to speak IT, you have to be able to speak security, you have to be able to speak development and engineering, and then you have to be able to speak business.
Let me ask it from the CISO perspective, because and this is not a very fun conversation to have at the CISO level, and I've had it before, right? But when you look across, say, a Fortune 100 company, right? Maybe it's 100 people across the entire CISO organization. The question was, what percentage are engineers? What percentage of your cybersecurity organization of a Fortune 100 company should be engineer qualified people versus, not engineer qualified people?
So I've had the opportunity. I ran security, architecture, engineering operations for Symantec. So that's when you talk about a larger size company in that area. I don't think that was Fortune 100. I think it was Fortune 500 that the Symantec was at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we're an engineering company. So what I can tell you there from my own experience, not from what should be that list,
Mm-hmm.
I ran and had half of the security team for information security within my purview under security engineering operations. That included the SOC in that count. So it was 50. It was literally 50-50 in that size organization. The challenge you get when you get into these larger organizations is that the business touch, just like a company has sales reps and sales engineers that goes out and works with the different customers that you work with within an organization of that size. Those business touches and having that liaison that goes out and works directly with that business unit to make sure they bring back, just as you have your finance partner that works with you on your finance budget, and you've got your HR partner. It's the same thing in security at that size company, where you have that whole division, and that team works within the strategy and governance, risk, and compliance side of the organization, which would not be what you would consider like a standard security engineer type role.
Gotcha.
That's my experience.
Okay. Edward, that's what it is. Take what you can, give nothing back. That's the pirate motto. There it is. Therson wants to know what part of Texas. He's a fellow Texan down there.
Therson, I'm north of Austin, northwest of Austin, up in Hill Country.
I think Therson's in Austin too, if I recall correctly. Not to rat you out,
Ping
Therson.
me on LinkedIn. We'll hook up.
There you go.
My smoker's broke though. My smoker's broke right now. So I overworked my smoker this weekend, Thurston. So you gotta bring me something.
Look, come for the cybersecurity news. Leave with a new Austin contact where you can get some barbecue. That's what we're all about here on the stream, right there. My favorite part are engineers who think that they know security because they use LastPass. God, security guru guy is cynical tonight. Wow.
What happened to 1Password? I thought the engineers were using 1Password. LastPass? Really?
They saw it in the news and they decided to pick up on LastPass. They saw it was breached, and so they took the Microsoft example and thought it was a good opportunity to use it.
There you
go. Based on company size, obviously type of business matters too. At what point do you think a security engineer is needed, or any sort of security specialist? 50, 100, 500, or only if the company deals with XXX amount of dollars?
Well, I'm hiring two roles right now because coming into a startup, and I spent the first 6 months I was here really understanding what this company does, how we needed what we needed before. And I actually have 3 open recs right now for a security architect, which is an engineer on steroids from the way that I define the role, not from that enterprise solutions architect role who hates everything and has to understand everything themselves. So I have that role open at the same time that I have a lead GRC role. Now, these are both individual contributor roles because we are a small company, but the skill set I'm looking for is at that level. And I'm also looking for an IT engineer as I also have responsibility for IT within my company.
So the subtle hint for everybody who just heard that is connect with Roger, send him your resume, and put yourself up for that job. That's what he just told everybody on the stream. He's looking for high-powered folks.
If I can't do it, I know other people that have open recs right now and are looking for people.
There you go.
By the way, Thurston, I know there's about 2 different open recs for security engineers in Austin right now. There's some people really looking hard for some really good security engineers in Austin.
There you go. Um, Austin represents security. First day back from vacation. Okay, cool. So we're getting a lot of a lot of career questions. So I'm actually going to jump to that section because Crook Tiny asked in chat. He says, "Do you value degrees or self-taught?" And that's very similar to a question I wanted to ask you as well. So do you value degrees or self-taught?
Did you troll my LinkedIn profile yet?
Did I or did the rest of chat?
Did the rest of the chat? I don't have a degree. I was hired while I was still in college, and I got hired off with an opportunity. I don't have a degree. I have over 30 years of experience in technology, with over 20 of those being in information security. Based upon what position you're going for, I can spell out and I can architect what the value each of those will give you. For a CISO, having a master's degree is very helpful, but in my lexicon, but when I say that, I don't mean a master's in engineering. I mean an MBA, because that's where that being able to communicate and understand what are the business requirements and understanding how that goes. I've learned so much in my career that's been very valuable in me, and having board conversations, just hanging out with security and market or sales and marketing leadership, and understanding how they're being measured within the company and what their success criteria looks like. So yes, that's me. I just saw my LinkedIn profile just got shared. Now the fun starts. But no, for a CISO with that area, I think an MBA is a path, and I know a ton of CISOs that have gone back and got their MBAs to make them more valuable. For an opening in position for security engineering, I think a bachelor's degree is going to be phenomenal, unless you can pass all the same tests that they're going to give that engineer coming out of college, and you can pass that because they're going to give you a skills-based interview process and test to see whether or not you can do the work. They're not looking for whether or not you know how to use X technology. They're looking on whether or not you know how to use critical thinking in that area. I am a CISSP, ISSMP, and I respect, and in fact, I'm speaking with ISC Squared Europe tomorrow. I'm doing a webinar with them around how to use machine learning to lower risk within your organization. Love the organization. I've been with them. I've been a CSSP since 2005. I'll say that one more time, 2005. Some of you weren't in high school at that point. So professional organizations and skill sets you get there do add value, but it's what you do with them that counts. I see value across the board.
Is it fair to say, I know this question was very much geared towards degrees or self-taught. When you're sitting down, I want to talk, like when you're sitting down and talking to somebody outside of doing a skills assessment, how do you weigh, or what are the things that you look at? How do you weigh somebody who's good on paper versus somebody who's got that fire in the belly commitment level? I think when I see a question like degrees or self-taught, and I've given this advice to people on the red team side or the blue team side when it comes to a SecOps, career path, is when I look at a resume, I actually skip past all the paper that's on a resume, and I'm actually looking for, tell me what you do. Tell me what you do, not necessarily outside of work, from like, I'm looking for the guy who's going to work 24/7, but did you build a home lab? Are you participating in bug bounties because you think it's fun? Are you on the cyber insecurity streamer like every Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, right? What are you doing that is not necessarily tied to something that looks good on paper, but where do you find that fire in the belly commitment level from somebody getting into cybersecurity, or even who's going from job to job inside of cybersecurity?
So that's the passion level.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And in fact, in this process, as I was going through, because I was just getting these job recs out this week to be able to start hiring, having that discussion about what job recs do you want to do that skills based of the interview process, on which ones do you not. I don't really ask a lot of questions when I do an interview with people. I identify someone who's incredibly technical in the skill set necessary. And by technical, I don't mean engineer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean in how that job does, because there's an incredible amount of technical in GRC that needs to be done, and there's a type of critical thinking that's critical for that. But I go off of passion and culture. So if I'm talking to a red teamer or a blue teamer, and they don't have a home network set up, when I talked about what they do with their time off when they're not getting paid, that piece comes in, because it's like, okay, what are your passions? So when you did my introduction, one of my passions is my family, and that's incredibly important to me. But that passion revolves into everything that I do, because those things that are close and dear to my heart are things that I have passion for, where I spend my time. And at this point in my career, part of my passion is improving our industry,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that it won't be as hard tomorrow as it was when I was coming up.
Very, very much wholeheartedly agree with that. I think from my perspective too, like I think it's that passion that makes our industry different. I think when
Hold on one second. I want to get to this, and you told me not to look at the chat window, and it's actually really small for me. But hold on, because I think I really want to answer this. Let me get these things on.
Oh, you're talking about what Crook Tiny said?
Yeah, can you read that off to me?
Yeah,
I can't
absolutely.
quite see it, but it sounds really important.
What about a self-taught programmer with a felony due to working as a gray hat? Are tech-related felonies an immediate no-no?
Depends upon what industry I'm hiring into. Unfortunately for my company, that is against what we have to do, because we are a privacy company. And so we have a requirement from our customers that we couldn't hire that person. I can tell you, at a different role in my life, I hired a felon. He was phenomenal. He was a self-taught programmer, and he was fantastic. But what the felony is and everything else, that is all subjective in what you can do, right? For me, it's what my customers allow me to do. So can I have people that are engineers and have the possibility of touching customer data? I can't, because I'm contractually not allowed to, because that's their requirements of their industry. So I couldn't do that today. I'm not mad at you, right? I don't know the specifics about what kind of gray hatting you were doing and how you got caught. There could be some stupidity that ties into that one, asking for a friend of, did you try to make a point and do something illegal just to make a point? Let's make better decisions.
Right.
But no, I mean, that's not a non-breaker for me.
I think, and Muncher hits on it too. PCI and HIPAA would probably be a no-go most likely. I've done a stint at multiple financial services companies, and I could tell you that would be a no-go at a lot of folks who do PCI FS type work as well. I think I would say, I don't know, Roger, what your experience has been with some of the consulting companies, but I think you could do a consulting company, because then at least it can go from an engagement to an engagement perspective. And if you weren't doing an engagement on a a difficult client, you could probably see yourself doing some work with certain consulting companies.
I'd actually look into areas that are more into manufacturing areas like that, where it's not as critical of a run. Because unfortunately with consulting, again, you have to agree to their background checks. And depends upon who you're consulting for. Everything with financial is going to do background checks from criminal to financial as well.
Yeah.
So so that might still be challenging if you're looking at consulting, unless you focus in an area to where it's not regulatory compliance that gets you kept out of that discussion.
Yeah, that's.
I mean,
go ahead.
I'm still in contact with the individual that I just mentioned that I hired and that worked for me before. I was in a position to where that wasn't the criticality, and I could do that without breaking any customer contracts. And the individual was incredibly self-taught. By the way, they had a home network. They actually had those steel bread racks on both sides of their desk. And they had drinks on this side, and they had Doritos and sugar on this side, so that they could work 24 hours if they needed to.
Yes, very much so.
Great guy today. Love the guy. Still talk to him regularly.
I think I would actually echo what Roger said. Right, Crook Tiny is I don't think the fact that you have a felony for any reason, that's, hopefully it's in your past, that's a conversation we can have during the interview process. That's all irrelevant. If you've got skill set, you're rehabilitating, and I've got no client requirements or anything like that. I think that you're there having a conversation regardless of what your past has. I think that's, I don't think that there's nearly as much negative stigma around that. I think if you're running into problems, you don't take it upon yourself that it's a downer on you. You're probably hitting, a regulatory wall that,
Yeah.
organizations may have to adhere to.
But that's also why when I have interviews with people, I have a conversation because I want to get to know the person.
Right.
I want to
Exactly.
I want to understand that. I don't want to. You'll never hear me ask a question of, so why are you interested in Big ID?
Right. Exactly.
You know,
Tell me
you
what
know,
you see for yourself in 5 years.
I had that when I actually was interviewing at a company. I won't say who it is because I don't want to burn anyone. But it was actually an SVP that says, "So why are you interested in X?" I'm like, "Because you called me and asked me to come talk to you because you needed me."
Did you forget how this worked? You called me.
But remember, every interview is a two-way conversation.
That's right.
It's
That's
like,
right.
it's like you're an SVP and you're asking me why I'm interested in coming to your company. It's like you're a high tech company. You know all the reasons why I'm here,
That's
but
right.
why did I get here? Is because you reached out to me, let me know that you had no position. You were interested in seeing if seeing my talent skill set would actually fit with that. So I mean, it's like we're both here for the same reason. Now what specifically do I find interesting after being in this interview process? That's a better question. That's a
Yeah.
good question.
So let's. I want to go back to your comment about 4-year degrees, and especially around the CISOs, and as you get a little bit higher up in that executive
Mhm.
tier a little bit, we've seen a lot of big fours like PwC and Deloitte and EY really move away from 4-year degrees being a requirement, and we've seen Elon Musk has come out for Tesla and said that as well, and I think you made a great point about yeah, I mean, at a certain level, who cares, right? Let's look at your skill set. Let's look at your fire in the belly, your passion, and things like that. Do you
Right.
think that we will continue? And we don't really have this problem in cyber at that mid management down to the technical level, but do you think that we're going to continue to see that erosion of the requirement of a 4-year degree eventually make it into the CISO realm? Do you think that, I know that the Anthem CISO doesn't have a 4-year degree right now. You've been a CISO, you don't have a 4-year degree right now. Do you think that we will see more of those barriers break down more predominantly across the industry?
By the way, he and I've had that conversation. So here's the thing. I already see it, and I see it completely from before, because when I looked at job recs around 99, 2000, 2001, right? It didn't say back a 4-year degree or equivalent combination of work experience, right? And education. It just said 4-year degree.
Right.
Now the common language, unless it's like a development engineering degree that's very specific in those areas. So in the security realm, now those are saying 4-year degree or combination of work experience, education, and mine actually says certifications.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's some roles that, I mean, especially like if you're talking about privacy, the SIP certification is something that's really critical for you even to understand where the starting point is. And it doesn't matter how long you've worked in security or how long you've negotiated contracts, or whether or not you've read CCPA backwards and forwards 2 or 3 times, or GDPR backwards and forwards. If you don't have the SIP certification, you don't have the shortcut to know what you need to do.
Right.
So that's your shortcut path. That's your tie-in in that area. And there's certifications that do that. And there's certifications that tie into specific jobs that give you that first step up in there, or there's internships that can give you that first step up in there as well to understand. The companies that I appreciate the most are the ones that have college programs to where they bring in college students that are graduating in the next year, and they go through a program, and then they come back and they give them a 6-month program that leap starts their career. And that falls into, if you need that degree, you want that degree in that area. And then we've got companies that I've worked for that actually have had that, and I've used that and hired in. And when I was at Symantec, an individual that did not have a high school degree
Wow.
worked through one of these intern programs we had. And as far as I know today, I don't, I can't quote, but I know as of last year, that individual was a security engineer at Symantec at this point in time.
Wow.
And so companies do have the programs and have the ability to do that in the larger companies, but those processes, and it was a great, this was one of the hardest workers I've ever met. She did a phenomenal job for us. She stuck through the program. She stuck through our requirements. We hired her on a temporary basis at the end of the program as an analyst. She worked as an analyst. She continued to learn within our program and her way up to where she was a security engineer in our operations center.
Wow, that's amazing. So when I hear stories like that, I love to hear those types of stories, and I love your when you talk about doing internship work and working with universities, and I've been part of several of those programs throughout my career as well. Um, do you think that it's kind of a two-part question? Do you think that there's a cybersecurity skills shortage? And do you think that we're doing enough, like programs like what you just described, to address what many perceive to be a cybersecurity skills shortage?
No, I think there's an entitlement saturation.
Ooh,
I'm going to get
ooh.
in a lot of trouble right here.
Oh, this ought to be
Um,
good. Entitlement saturation, gentlemen and ladies in the chat. Entitlement saturation. Let's hear this.
so I've got my CSSP. I graduated from college. Why don't I have a job? Right? Hey, I wrote my own buzzword. That's my buzzword. You can't use my buzzword. Okay.
Actually, for the next
So
24 hours, it belongs to Amazon. Just saying.
um, so the thing is that I hear this all the time, and I had a long conversation with one person right after they got their second bachelor's degree, and they're very like I put in all this work, I got good grades, I have this, and I was told by the universities that when I came out that I would have a job, and I don't have a job. Why don't I have a job? And I'm like, well, who did you do the research and actually choose where you wanted to work and what you want to do for them? Well, no, but they were supposed to be a job for me when I got out of college, right? And literally, this person literally said it that way. I'm paraphrasing, but they literally said it that way. They hadn't done any work. They expected the placement office at the university to get them a job. They didn't care where they were going to work. They didn't care any of that as long as they had a job, based upon the degree that they had. And so that's where it comes back. And that's why my point about, an interview is a two-way street is so critically important, is because when you sit down and you go through that interview, as we're looking for the person that's cultural fit to the culture, that cultural fit isn't that I have the skill set necessary. If you didn't have skill set on paper necessary for the job, we wouldn't be talking to you. You wouldn't have made it through that section already. Now we're at the interview section. Now you have to tell me what's important for you, and if you did any research for the company, what our culture is, what we're trying to do, and what's important. You should have an idea of how to explain where your passions intersect with company culture and what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't do that part right there, then I have a question of whether or not your engagement and what the ability to work with others falls into meeting your responsibilities or falls into doing the right thing for the company.
Do you think that you turn off millennial or Gen Z candidates with that type of mentality as a company?
What type of mentality is a company?
That says,
Define that.
If you want to work here, tell me what you've done to prove that you deserve to work here. Trying to break that, entitlement mentality when it comes to looking for a job.
So my kids are 30 in their early 30s, 30, 32, 34. Okay. And I have interactions with kids that I call them kids, sorry, in your 20s, right? That have a college degree in their 20s. I other than when I'm drinking and we want to make a really good joke, I don't tie this culturally into millennials or zillennials or any of that. I really tie it into whether or not you have a work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
But having a work ethic means that you're able to drive forward, and it's not about being a self starter; it's about being a self finisher.
Mm-hmm.
I think our universities have done a really bad job about making every project that's done in college a team project, and you get rated as a team.
Mm.
And I think that that's a difference into how you have to operate in security, maybe especially in startup companies. Absolutely, is you have to be a team player. You have to be able to work and and get buy-in and get people to help you and provide feedback into what you're doing. But you're not being graded by people that are outside of your department on whether or not they helped you get your job done. And so the passion, the ability to, I don't care if it's an individual role or not, but be a leader and be able to drive to a successful solution, not just be a self-starter of I'm working really hard. I got here at 6 a.m. in the morning. I worked all day long. Why don't you feel that I'm productive? It's like, we can always work hard, but can we work smart? And part of that work smart is being able to continue to work when you may not have the team or the support behind you to drive forward, and that's where leadership shines.
Do you think that so what is it, are we failing as leaders then, whenever we have conversations with those folks who have that entitlement mentality? Are we failing to say, are we failing to fix the university mentality, or should we be working with the university to say you're failing us when folks are leaving college?
So I am, and a number of my peers, that I partner with and work with in a number of ways. And the Security Advisors Alliance is actually even going down and doing it in local areas down at the high school level
Mm.
and below. And so there is security organizations like Security Advisors Alliance, which I am very proud of. I engage with them as much as possible. I think they're a phenomenal organization, to where they work. But this again is regionally where I think the problem is more systemic for how we do it in that way. Um, so the other part of the point of that is that it's no good to the individual if we just don't hire you,
Mm-hmm.
right? The other way of an interview being a two-way street is, one of the things that I always do in an interview is like, so I've answered your questions, you've answered mine. My last question is what did I miss?
Mm-hmm.
What answer did I give you that didn't give you confidence that I can fit in here at this organization and I can do this job for you? And I want real feedback. And a lot of times I don't get the feedback that I'm looking for, but I still ask for it. The flip side is that when I'm in the interview process and I'm working with someone else, I provide them that feedback
If they don't ask for it, you're
to show.
proactively saying, here's what I didn't hear out of you that I was hoping to hear out of you.
I even provide that field back to sales reps to try to cold call me to help them understand what would have worked and what didn't work in the process when they were trying to deliver their message to get me to take that 30-minute call with their company to tell them how their company's going to solve all of my security needs. I provide that feedback there as well. I'm a giver. I'm a giver.
Sometimes it has a little barbs when it comes across the wire, but that's a mute point. That's just tactic. I
Try
guess
to communicate with people the way they like to be communicated, right?
I ask these questions. These are obviously loaded questions because I've hired and fired and staffed thousands of people throughout my career as well, and I have to say that I've only ever encountered one case, where I've been unable to retain. I think he was a Gen Zer, at an organization, and he was less than 2 years out of college. I had brought him in to give him, what he had articulated was his dream job. I gave him tons of training. I tried to do everything in the millennial and the Gen Zer playbook. And, he comes to me and says one day that he's going to take another opportunity. And I built that kind of culture in my team where I was like, I want you to talk to me about when you're going to come take another opportunity so that we can make sure that we all talk about it and have that conversation together. And he told me, Neil, I'm interested in taking another opportunity. Here's where it's at. Here's what I'm going to be doing. And here's what the salary is. And it was about 50% more than what he was making with me. And I went back and I fought hard, and I got him everything on his list except for that salary, and then some. I was able to give him more training and give him more information, more opportunities, and he was already very, very well paid for not only where he was in his career versus where he was living. I mean, he was barely in his mid-20s, and he had a brand new Tesla sitting in the garage, and I guess I ask all this to say, are we just doomed that there are some things that we're just never going to be able to solve, with that entitlement mentality that you speak of, or is it something that we're fundamentally doing wrong as an industry that we need to change how we think or how we act towards folks who have that entitlement mentality?
And apologies, my Rottweiler decided that I'd been in this room too long, so he actually came through the door behind me and wanted a little bit of attention. So I think this is cultural, that you could go cross culture in any area, but I think it's also within that culture, and I think expectations for the individual need to come into play on this as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, here's the reality: not every job with every company is a career path.
Yeah.
Right? And especially unless you're working for an incredibly large company, they may not have an opportunity when you start to stretch beyond what you're allowed to do or what the company is just going to support you to do. And that's one of the reasons why people change companies.
Yeah.
You have to look at what the time frame is in that. You have to look at, how long was that person at your company, because you can't keep them forever. There's no expectation anymore that you're going to have an employee work for you for 7 years, 10 years, retire in that role.
Not
right?
at all.
And again, especially in InfoSec, it's going to be very hard to identify people that could sustain in that. I only know of one individual. I respect him greatly. He also frustrated the hell out of me on more than one occasion. But and he retired in a role and he had a role between three companies that lasted over 15 years. 18 years in those three companies. So he was able to do that, but that's not really the case normally.
Yeah.
But I think we need to actually start managing people as an individual. I know that it's really easy to bucket them. I know I do it. And I'm not proud of that, but most of the time, again, that's when I'm trying to make a joke and we've got a cocktail in front of us. But the managing the individuals, understanding what's important to them, what their guideline is. I had an incredibly brilliant individual working for me that he had an expectation for his career growth, and he needed to move on because he couldn't get the promotion that he was looking for within with working for me and within the organization we're at. And so he went on to another job. Every time you get a new job, you get paid, right? That happens. So a lot of people goes from one job to the other because that's the only way they can get a promotion, and that's where promotions happen in a lot of cases. And I don't think that it should be defined that way as well. But if you find people that are actually good, that happens. But you have to manage the person.
Yeah.
You can't manage the generation. You can't manage that, and you have to manage the person to be able to meet the person's goals. I kept one employee 6 months longer than he or we had expected him to stay with us, just because focusing and managing on helping him get to that next level. Yeah. Now, this is also the first person that I asked for feedback as he was leaving to take a role at another technology company. And his feedback was that with millennials, I needed to be a little bit more kinder and pat them on the head more. So I got that feedback. I've been working on that feedback.
Is that why you got the Rottweilers to help you with the patting them on the head?
Well, no, that's when I give up patting him on the head. So that by the way, that is the most tender, perceptive dog I've had in my life. He's phenomenal, but he's also a little needy. So
speaking of needy, let's hit chat a little bit here on this one, because we got quite a bit. So Crook Tiny comes back and says he feels he or she feels it's a two-way street. I have the skill set you're seeking. Convince me why I should work for you other than providing me a job. I feel too many companies, especially right now during COVID, are taking advantage of applicants. Thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm not just going to provide you a job, I'm going to provide you a career path. So I need to know from you what that career path or what your goals look like in that area so I can support. The cool thing of being this old is that, I actually have a number of peers that I've worked with at one time or another, and we stay in contact. And so, I'm humbled and proud of my network. And you come to work for me, and my network is your network.
Yeah.
So what do you want to do? Let's find out, and let's actually build that plan as well as the plan and goals of performance expected within the company, because both of those have to be met if I'm going to retain you for the 3.5 years expectation that I'd like to be able to hold someone before they go on and outgrow what any one company is working for.
Muncher says, I wish companies would stop trying to sell me on being my friend or improving my life. I always want the company to show me appreciation in a way we both agree is best, ... financially. And then security guy followed up with that. It says, LOL, yeah, I've been to some interviews where they talk up their quote unquote culture, then try to undercut my salary below market rates. I don't care about your ping pong table or your break room or casual Fridays. If you don't value my role enough, then I know you won't give me the budget I really need to succeed. Do you think financial, demonstration of value is more important, or how do you weigh that against cultural ideology in a company?
Well, no, this was exactly what I was talking about. You have to manage to the individual. You can't manage to the generation, right? If the goal is money and money's the goal, then you're a remote employee. I don't even need you to come into the office. You can make your own coffee, and let's compensate you accordingly. The challenge that we do have today is that you look at all of the different data on what people are getting paid, and the data is aggregated too much to where it doesn't, and the job roles within security are not defined well enough yet over the years. So what are you actually supposed to pay these people? So yeah, there's a ton of lowballing going on out there.
Do you think that candidates, like in the case of Muncher and security guru guy who have this idea, do you think that it's okay for them to sit in an interview and be like, hey, we both know why we're here. We've made it this far in the interview process. Look, my interest is very, very financially driven. Here's where I want to be. Do you think that's being too transparent? Do you think that we, or because I think some people are conditioned to say, yeah, I love your company. You've got a great mission. The job seems really cool. I'd really like to work here. But then they hit you with a low number, and then you're kind of dissuaded from working for that company. Do you think that we need to be more transparent as candidates in doing that?
I think you got to be clear on what your goals and needs are and expectations. I see at the bottom, I see Austin money is not the same as San Francisco money. It is if you make it that. Okay. Let me give you an argument on that. I was having a conversation a few years back, and they're like, well, that exact thing, in Austin, this much money carries you so much further. In San Francisco, this is part of the cost of living index, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, okay, so you're a global company and you're asking me to host a global position. You're not hiring me based upon where I live. You're hiring me upon the skill set and the impact of the company. So there shouldn't be a difference in the cost based upon whether I'm in Austin or San Francisco, based upon the fact that I'm the CISO and I'm the global CISO responsible for protecting of the company, protecting your customers, and also being one of your customers. So the argument can be made both ways at the same point in time. Unless I have offices in New York City, I'm probably not really going to want to pay New York City prices if there's areas to where people are willing to work in that area. The biggest problem we have in this scenario is there's people out. This is again my soapbox. I'm going to get in trouble for this. I've been getting in trouble all night with you, Neil.
Hey man, I bring it.
Part of the reason why one of my goals is to help improve the industry is to stop people from accepting lowball offers that come with a title.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
If title is what you're interested in, I understand that, right? I get that part. And that's a goal that you're probably working for. But I see so many companies out there today where they'll call it a CISO, they'll call it a head of security title. But it's a title that someone's looking for so they can adjust to move their career forward and jump to that next role. instead of them actually looking at what they're actually bringing to the company and how that is. And so now you've got someone out there that has a CISO title that has taken a job that was actually a security director role at a security director pay. And so now everyone else with a CISO title that may not be a security director CISO, but maybe a senior director CISO or a VP CISO or an SVP CISO. And that is literally killing the curve on compensation. And then that flows downhill into every other role from an engineering role, which people think, oh, IT security. No, we're global security. We're not just IT. Oh, but IT engineers only make this amount of money, so we're going to level set you and put you with IT engineers,
Yes.
which has a different impact because IT engineers are focused on user experience, uptime, and availability, not on privacy, usage, and protection as we are. And so it's a different responsibility with different requirements at that point, different skill set, and different level of visibility. So this is where we have to address this industry. So if you get lowballed, don't take the job.
That's right.
Your value is greater than that. Know what your value is. I got a call the other day and says, "Hey, are you talking to SOSA about a job?" I'm like, "Well, they called me, so I took the call." They're like, "Why?" Because I wanted to know what my value was. I always take the call to know what my value is.
So it's amazing you asked that one, because this is a question I want to get to. I know we're at the top of the hour, but N2X4 asked a very similar question. It was a two-part question. I think you hit on it right there, and I just want to get this one to him, him or her directly. Right? Is so I've heard that you should be applying for jobs even when you're not actively looking, just to be sure you're staying current in the landscape. Agree? ? And if you agree, what if you apply for a position at a company and are offered the job and turn down the role? Does that impact your chance of applying at another position at another company or at that company?
So the first one, this is based upon what your personal goals are. I know people that stability is more important to them, so they're not going to do that, and they're not going to operate that way. But then again, those people are comfortable where they're at already. They don't feel that they're outside of the norm. I always take the call. And I'll tell you why. I got a recruiter call me many years ago and asked me if he said that he was looking for candidates for an IT security manager role for a B2C company. And I asked, you just called a senior director about an IT manager role that we're operating in a company with over 25,000 users to a company that only has about 5,000 users. Please tell me why I should take this interview, take this call. And he couldn't answer the question, right? And so I passed on that, where one of my friends did take that phone call and he got to take Netflix to AWS and to streaming video because I didn't take the call. So I always say take the call because that's an opportunity missed that would have been an incredibly fun job. I still don't know if I would have taken it, but you don't have to take the job just because they offer it to you. It has to meet your requirements, but you do have to be upfront about what your expectations are, why you're interviewing, and what your goals are. Give them the opportunity to meet those goals, because if you don't tell them, they're going to assume what they are, and they're going to try to shape it accordingly. And at that point, now it's a back and forth, and now it can be a challenge.
I agree with that. And N2X4, kind of to your first part of that question, I agree with Roger. Right? I think I always coach people, you should always keep your opportunities open. You should always be looking for a job, because to Roger's point, you never know when you're going to get that Netflix role. And so you've got to take the calls, you've got to apply for the jobs, and you won't actually, what you see in LinkedIn or anything else is vastly different than when you actually talk to not even a recruiter, but somebody in HR. You may be talking to the CISO or whoever the case is, and you've got to have that call to even know if that's an opportunity you want to take. So I agree with that completely. A couple more real quick. I know we're kind of bumping up against the top of the hour. A bunch of people arguing about SF housing versus Austin housing. Crumbs says, as a millennial, I love being patted. Everybody in chat, please, pat Crumbs was taken on the head. He loves to be patted. That's right. Pat Crumbs on the head. Pat Crumbs on the head. Speaking of titles, Crook Tiny says, I'm 28 with 6 years of experience as a developer. At what point should I start making a transition into management?
Never.
Never.
Don't go to the dark side. Whatever you do, take the technical path. Work your way up into that architecture, that technical fellow role. Stay out of management. You'll never appreciate it.
You're going to be miserable your whole career.
Yeah. Never go into management because you think it's a career move.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
There's technical paths out of that. A senior architect technical path, can run, if you believe Radford, the equivalent of a senior director. Fellows, runs the same path as a vice president. So never go management unless this is something that you have a passion for, because otherwise you're going to be a lousy manager. The problem is that people find really good technical people and they force them into management, and that's not their skill set.
I think, and I would echo that. Like I have tried to fight against moving to management my entire career, and it hurts me every single day, which is why I do the streams and I run my business and I do, bug bounties and CTFs and things like that, is because like I regret having to do that move to management, and I regret it every day. Unless you have a passion for it, just stay away from it.
There's room in this industry. You don't have to be in management to be successful and grow your career, and I think
Absolutely.
that's really important.
I think that's an amazing message. I have a pen tester buddy. He's older than Roger and I put together. He's pretty old. He's been a pen tester his entire latter half of his career. He's going to retire in a couple years, and he's had no interest to do anything other than just be a pen tester his entire career. And he's been perfectly happy to be, individual contributor level pen tester, never interested in management. Like, as a matter of fact, he's turned down management, responsibilities, his entire career. So
I bet he's got some great hobbies too,
he
because he's
does.
not working that
He
24/7,
spends
picking up
time
the
with
phone
his
at all hours of the
kids and
night.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, he's
yeah.
not on the phone with a bunch of security nerds, at a 2 hour stream, taking, doing things like that. He's out hanging out with his kids.
Exactly.
Volter says, thanks. That's something I've been pondering, not in cybersecurity yet. Should I look at that path, or do I need to focus more on management? Last manager was a project manager with no IT background, and I didn't know how to feel about that.
Last manager was a project manager with no IT background. I can I could support a program manager without a technical background. A project
Yeah.
manager, that one would be a little bit hard for me. It depends upon the individual, but I still, that doesn't sound on key. That sounds like that's off key. Um, but again, it's where do you want to take your career, and what do you want to do with it? Um, sounds like next week or Wednesday is going to be an interesting topic in that area as well. Not to plug your show for when I'm not on it, but this is something that's really important. This is something that in the CISO community that we talk about on a regular basis, about trying to help people find where their career is doing what they want with it. And in one case, at my last role, it was actually bringing someone into management who she was scared to do that because she didn't know what it was, but she'd spent 10 years as an engineer, and and she kept asking for challenges that led her into that. So we had that discussion. We let her dip her toe into the waters, and she's running Olympic laps right now. It's phenomenal. So this is really the biggest point to come back to on this is it's all personal and it's all direct. You can't manage two groups,
Yeah.
right? You can't assume that all engineers think alike. You can't assume, and we learned this back in the dot-com boom,
Mm-hmm.
where literally, an engineer would turn down better money to come work for you as long as you gave him a corner office with a window so he could look out over the bay. Seriously, this was going on at that time, and it's literally about understanding what those motivation factors are and being able to treat that person as an individual and as a human, and help them, give them the opportunity to grow their career. They've got to do the work, but you've got to open up the door to the path. And you can't do that if you don't know what door to open for them.
That's very good advice. All right, so we got a late bloomer in on chat. Dropped in late, so I apologize if the question is off base. No question is off base. Cyber Roflo, I love that name. As a person trying to make a career change in cyber with no previous IT background, What is your opinion on the gatekeeper train of thought? For example, the thought that someone needs to be an IT support, sysadmin, then network before getting into cyber-specific position versus obtaining the KSAs, degree cert, home lab certs, et cetera, and going straight into a cyber role. So, thoughts on gatekeepers?
Stop talking to the old school guard that's trying to protect the way they've always done stuff. Look for people that
Absolutely.
actually aren't willing to just say we do it this way because we always have. Here's one thing that I think that a lot of people miss. Okay, especially in transition. I do spend time with the armed services in transitioning and people that are transitioning off. And in many cases, there is a leadership and a management skill set that comes in from transitioning from a different career into cyber. And that transitions phenomenally well into program management, into strategy, and into governance, risk, and compliance. And transitioning in and taking that path instead of thinking that everything's around being a techie and an engineer. Again, that was only half of the team at Symantec. The other half was actually business strategy, understanding organization. And I got an air traffic controller. Oh my God.
In the Navy.
Yeah, how many flybys did you get by Maverick and Goose? So yeah, I'm talking about a stressful job. That's a stressful job. You can't even get old in that job. They only let you do that job until you hit a certain age. So yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm talking about. The transitioning and being able to leverage the skill set you have. My son, both of my sons are former Marines. My daughter-in-law is a former Marine. They're transitioning out at this point as well. So, and transitioning from military into civilian. So, that transition, leveraging that, again, finding out that path that works for you. I know a great guy that was in the Navy. In fact, he actually ran cyber and was a CIO for a couple of different regions within the Navy before retiring. And now he works for AWS and he's responsible for federal government services in AWS and flies all over the world talking about how AWS can support the regulatory requirements for government and nation states. So
Awesome.
great transition for
Awesome.
him as well. So that's the goal that I have there. Is there are multiple paths, and yes, I have got two gentlemen that I check in with every 3 months on right now as they're building that transition path and transitioning in civilian life.
Awesome. Well, thank them very much from on behalf of our team for their service. So with that being said, I want to kind of hit the results of our poll before we start to close things up. It looks like we're 50-50 split, pirates and ninjas. Looks like we had a couple people try to cheat a little bit, use the channel points. I should have turned that off, but looks like we're 50-50 split between pirates and ninjas. So I think what I would say Roger, I don't know if you agree with me or not, but let's say that we want to create more pirates in this industry and less ninjas. Let's set a date. Let's set a date for 30 days from now. Chat. Let's revisit this poll in 30 days. I'll set this on the calendar. We're going to do this poll again in 30 days, and let's see a significant shift in pirates and ninjas, and let's see if we get some more pirates on that board versus ninjas. Does that sound like a deal?
I think it'd be awesome, but I want to throw one more thing out about that.
Go
Though.
for it.
Based upon your industry, success in the company you work at may be ninja, not pirate. It just may not be the right place for me to work. So that's the other point. As long as you've got the right passion, there is roles across. We're not all the same. We don't have to be all the same. How we operate doesn't have to be the same. So you just got to be able to find that sweet spot, what works for you, and understand that. I'm 53 years old and I'm still trying to find that sweet spot.
Awesome, fantastic. Well, cool. Roger, listen, we've run over. I appreciate your time. I know your time is precious. I want to thank you on behalf of everybody in chat. I want to thank you on behalf of the entire cyber and security community. Everybody in chat, throw some bits at Roger. Throw some cheers at Roger. Thank you so very much for your insight, sir. The floor is yours if you want to have any closing thoughts or anything like that for the community.
Well, no, I really thanks for inviting me and for engaging. This has been really pleasurable for me. I appreciate this. Neil, love this format. As we talked earlier, and first time talking about this, I thought this was a great format. Now I know it's a great format. Yeah, let me know when I can come back and binge your ear again. Love to come do it again. And you've got my LinkedIn profile up in the chat, and I'm telling the community, don't hesitate. If you have a question, reach out to me. Love to have the conversation. That's the only way that we learn.
Awesome. Thank you. Roger, I'm going to go ahead and do a closeout real quick. You can hang out in Zoom real fast and we'll do a debrief afterwards, or you can, I know it's late for you where you're at. You can take off and we'll sync up later in the week, but I'm going to shift on over, put you on mute for a second here. We're going to mute you. There we go. All right. Awesome. Thanks again, everybody. I know we ran a little bit over today. Real quick, just handling just some logistic closeout items for everybody's here. Don't forget about Wednesday's stream. I saw some people talking, a cyber row flow specifically, about transitioning, from a non-cyber, non-even IT career field into a cyber career field. We are doing an amazing giveaway on Wednesday's stream. It is a scholarship worth, up about $20,000 for an identity and access manager practitioner program. And it really is a way for folks to get into, a cybersecurity career field. And it's going to be a fantastic opportunity. We're going to have Bill Nelson, who's the co-founder of Identity Fusion, on the stream. I did want to also make a reference for those who I didn't tell, who didn't get the subscriber email today. We did secure a cybersecurity lawyer for next Wednesday, the 23rd. So I know we constantly talk on stream about having a cybersecurity lawyer come on stream and answer some of our questions. The lawyer who did the Atlanta ransomware in 2018, we have secured him for the stream next Wednesday. And so that's a great opportunity to bring all of your cyber legal questions to him. As with the stream, we'll try to carry as much of the news as possible, but you can see we only got through a couple articles today before we got kind of down on the tangent. That's really the value of this stream, the value of the chat. As you can see, we love to do these types of interacting sessions and these questions and whatnot. For everybody who followed during the stream, absolutely appreciate you. Welcome to the Cyber Insecurity family. For those who subscribed during the stream, welcome again to the Cyber Insecurity family, and you'll be looking for some of the perks that come along with being a sub on the stream. Don't forget, I put a link in chat. I'll post another link for the INE beta for the cybersecurity pass. I definitely want everybody. That's one of those. We'll share the link for the beta. Feel free to take this link, share it with your friends, share it with your mom, share it with your grandmothers, share it with anybody who you think could benefit from having some access to some free cybersecurity training. Hopefully, they'll get into the beta. Those who pre-signed up with me beforehand, you're definitely going to get into the beta. That's one of those subscriber perks that we did talk about. Other than that, keep it safe out there. We'll see everybody back on Wednesday, and keep learning out there.